If Christopher Columbus had seen a disease map of the world when he sailed, this is what it would have looked like. In Africa, there were the old world infections like malaria and yellow fever. In Europe and the Middle East, there were the crowd diseases like measles and smallpox. And in the Americas, there was a virgin population.
One of the things that they've left or traded with us was a plague which started from up in northern Maine and swept down through this region here, decimating 80 to 85% of my people here. And of course, most of the people, they were dying so fast that my people escaped inland.
Before first contact with Europeans, North America was heavily populated with many indigenous nations.
If anybody have any questions, I'll help them.
The first Americans had no idea they were to face a race whose immune systems had been armor-plated by 2,000 years of crowd diseases. The Europeans' disease history made them dangerous enemies of Native Americans. Prior to Columbus, there was a rich civilization in what's now the United States. This was a city of 14,000 people who built ceremonial mounds which were some of the largest structures in the world at that time. The first recorded European expedition into North America was led by a Spaniard in search of new lands. He was Hernando de Soto and went from Florida to Louisiana. It was a 3-year journey. He died before it ended. Amongst the Cruza tribe at Itaba, De Soto became one of the last outside people to witness this Native American culture. The last because of the silent soldiers which had gone with him.
In 1540, when the Spanish conquistador Hernando de Soto visited here, there would have been people sitting around the edges of this plaza, gossiping, talking, playing games. Children would have been running about, and all of the social hubbub of the society took place right here. They remained here for about a month. They rested up, they fed their horses, they commandeered food, they forced the Coosa to give them women and servants to take along with them. And then when De Soto departed from here, he took the chief of Coosa hostage. After De Soto departed, a curtain of darkness fell across the southeast, a historical darkness, in which no Europeans of any note penetrated the southeast again until the late 1600s. When these colonists penetrated the interior, it did not look the way it looked when De Soto was here. There were far fewer people. There were tiny settlements of people. The big mound centers had been abandoned, and entire areas that had been populated by people when De Soto was here were a wilderness. The only reasonable explanation is that it was European diseases, old world diseases, which came in from the coast. I really believe that this is when the germs and viruses really began to penetrate in a big way.
After a century or two, not only had the culture been destroyed, the tribes had no memories of what life had been like before the white men arrived. When Europeans wondered who built the mounds, the descendants of the mound builders didn't know.
It was a tragedy. If De Soto hadn't brought the people in and the disturbance and the diseases, someone else would. It's a consequence of the reuniting of our species. It's reuniting the distance and the time between the separation of our species in the old world.
This is a meticulous reconstruction of Plymouth, the Pilgrim Fathers' village in 1627, only 7 years after the Mayflower landed. The houses are built exactly the way they were. The garden plots are laid out as they would have been. And the staff give a good insight into the minds of the people who arrived with the armor-plated immune systems.
You've heard of that ship called Mayflower, eh? Yeah. And then a year later, there was a ship called Fortune. Have you ever heard of that ship?
Is that what the rifle is for?
Musket, aye, to some degree, killing of wolves and shooting at birds and such like that.
He says he'd much rather journey overland than 20 years. What might take but a few days at sea, so vexing was it unto him.
And your name?
I am William Bradford, Master Bradford.
Okay.
Yes. I think truly God in his infinite wisdom would endeavour to smite the Indians with a grievous disease, kill them in large numbers as a means of preparing the place for our coming. I think there can be no doubt upon it.
We would see the Indians, but they would not have converse with us. They'd run off into the forest. It was some months before an Indian first came to us, a man called Samoset, who very odd, for he came into the town very boldly, said, "Greetings, English," and asked for some beer. Others odd that he had knowledge of our tongue, yet the providence of God. He told us that we have settled upon the remains of an Indian town called Patuxet. This was completely destroyed by a plague that swept south from the coast of Maine, some 3 to 4 years before our arrival. His people were reduced from at one time, by their own reckoning, of 5,000 or 6,000 down to less than 100 at one time.
What's your interpretation of the plague?
Plague, sir, is a great mystery of God.
Their tongue, their manner of dress and painting themselves is not very much better than animals. And, well, you can see the wildness of this place. They do not civilize the land. They do not tame it and so much as they run unruly in it. And so they must needs be civilized.
But European germs had a helping hand from appalling cruelty. For the Cherokees, few events were worse than the Trail of Tears. The Cherokees were a great nation with vast lands. But in 1838, they were forced from their homes to make way for white settlement. It was a bitter winter, and men, women, and children were seized and forced to march to Oklahoma. It's reckoned that 4,000 died. But unlike the mound builders, these memories are not forgotten.
Now, this is a picture of my great-great-grandmother. This woman came over during the Trail of Tears as a young girl. Her and her sister came over together. She was with her mother at that time, rounded up by the soldiers. Her mother wouldn't cross one of the rivers that they were supposed to cross, and she was shot, according to the story in our family. And so some other people took this little girl and her sister in and came over and made the journey with them. The ordeal was horrendous. There's just report after report after report of cholera, of whooping cough. A lot of children died from whooping cough, various other diseases that devastated the Cherokee population during this period. The problem for the Indians is that they were faced not only with an onslaught of disease, but they were faced with all sorts of things that simply didn't allow normal recovery mechanisms to operate. You know, left to their own devices, the Indians, as other people have, could have survived. But they simply weren't left to their own devices. They simply weren't left alone. Their societies were altered and changed in fundamental ways. And they could never be the same again.